So these two sides are about to be in action for the last time in 2024. Italy taking on New Zealand. Now, New Zealand have had quite the heavy tour up north, 5 matches in total, whereas Italy, this will be their third and final. They want to make a real statement here. The last time these two sides met was pretty one-sided, but a lot of changes have taken place since then. Perhaps this one can be a bit closer, and in this video we'll be looking through at the lineups, the key head-to-heads, and then also a prediction at the end for who I think will win this game. Jumping straight into the lineups for the All Blacks, they did announce their side just after midnight on Friday morning, and as a whole, quite a few switches in this All Blacks side compared to what we saw last week in the narrow loss to France. A couple injury returns, and then also a bit of a send-off for a couple certain players as well. But jumping straight into the front row, number 1, Ethan de Groot. These will be his first minutes of the November internationals. Number 2, Cody Taylor, and number 3, Tyrell Lomax. So Taylor, they have opted to start, having a Samoa make his way off the bench as that impact player later on in the game. In the starting lineup for the Locks, they have gone Scott Barrett as the captain at number 4, and number 5, Patrick Tuipulotu. Now, that man has not had a huge amount of starting minutes throughout November, seeing as the only start that he's had was up against Japan, and that actually took place in October, just before the November international started, but he did get to captain the side in that game. It was a win, and one of the standouts in that game was Patrick Tuipulotu. In the loose forward trio, we see a return in that 7 jersey, but first of all, number 6, it is Wallace Sititi. Number 7, Sam Cane. He did take a head knock up against the Irish a couple weeks ago, which then meant he was unavailable for the game up against the French. In that contest, we saw Ardie Savia playing 7. We saw the early injury of Sama Penifenau, which actually gave Peter Lakai the chance. He will be making his way off the bench in this one. Sam Cane, over 100 caps to his name, a workhorse for the All Blacks over the years. This will be his last international, so hopefully can go out with a bang. Number 8, this is where they've gone with Ardie Savia, moving him back out of that 7 jersey for this matchup. In the backline, Cam Roigard and Beauden Barrett will once again be the starting combination, which is exactly what they went with up against the French, having Ratama and McKenzie both making their way off the bench. I have to say, maybe they make that switch of Ratama a little bit too early. Roigard looked extremely impressive up against France, so hopefully he can do the same here up against the Italians. In the midfield, we see no Geordie Barrett in that number 12 jersey. Instead, Anton Leonard-Brown will get the start, with number 13 being Rieko Ioane. And then in the back 3, another return for the All Blacks. Number 11, Caleb Clark. Number 14, we see Mark Talia return from his hand injury that he did suffer up against the Irish. And then number 15, to close out the starting side for the All Blacks, it is Will Jordan. Few notable names off the bench. In this game, they have got the experience of TJ Perenara, David Havili, and Damien McKenzie as the back replacements. Looking through at this Italian side now. They've had some good moments throughout their November international so far, having a dominant win on the first week, and they do come in as massive underdogs up against the All Blacks, but on paper, they've got a pretty strong side, so hopefully they can do something decent here. In the front row, it is Danilo Fischetti at number 1, number 2, Gianmarco Lucchesi, and number 3, Marco Riccioni. He can be very handy when it comes to the scrums, and whether or not Ethan de Groot, because he hasn't been playing any minutes, will be at his 100%, we will have to wait and see. In the locking duo will be Federico Rosa at number 4, and number 5, they've gone with Dino Lamb. And then in the loose board trio, Sebastian Negri at number 6, number 7, Manuel Zuliani, and number 8, Ross Vincent. So Italy will look to play a relatively physical game in the forwards, which is something at times New Zealand have been slightly weak up against. We've seen it when New Zealand played England in the July internationals. Some of the rugby championship just seem to lack that physicality, but I assume in this game, with it being in Italy, we're going to see some big hits taking place, both sides throwing everything into it. Close out the 2024. The 19 combination will be Martin Pagirello as the 9, and then Paolo Garbisi at 10. In the midfield, Tommaso Monticello and Juan Inacio Brex. And then in the back 3, Monty Ioane, who of course has plenty of pace. He will be up against Mark Talia, so that is a great head-to-head that we will get to see. Jacopo Trula out on the other wing, and then at number 15, of course, Ange Capuzio to close out this starting side. But moving on to the head-to-heads for this game, in terms of who are the best battles to watch out for on the field, we will start with that 10 jersey, Paolo Garbisi, and Beauden Barrett. Now, Beauden Barrett up against the French, I will say he had some pretty decent moments throughout that game, although he also had a few errors, one of which cost the All Blacks a try, and that is the last thing that they want to do here, because Razor, even though they've come into this game with a lot of confidence and they expect to win it comfortably in this match, the ABs, they still don't want to be doing silly errors that cost them tries, just because they want to go into this last game with as close to flawless game as they can, close out the year on a high. And Beauden Barrett, he's one of those players, he can have a 10 out of 10 game, but sometimes it's a 3 out of 10. And hopefully this one, it is going to be the 10, but you just never quite know with Beauden Barrett. Paulo Garbisi, he has that X factor in that 10 jersey, partnered with Martin Page-Rello. I can see Italy trying to play this one at a decent tempo throughout the early stages. Manoncello, he is a speedster in the midfield, and then having that size of Montiuani out on the wing. You know, if it's functioning, I think Italy could be quite dangerous here, and New Zealand certainly cannot underestimate this Italian backline. In terms of the next head-to-head to go with, I would say Sebastian Negri and Wallace Satiti. Both men love working hard out there on the field. Satiti getting nominated for Breakthrough Player of the Year. You can understand why when you look through at some of his games throughout 2024. He was selected as an All Blacks bolter, and in the end became a mainstay after only a few games. So it just shows you the kind of impact that he can bring. He's great at running the ball. He'll make his tackles. Could be one of the standouts throughout this matchup. On the other side of the equation, you got Sebastian Negri, a powerhouse for the Italians, who loves just throwing his weight into tackles when he makes them. He has got a little bit of decent ball running, so honestly, I think the loose forward trios in this game, having Sam Cane back for the All Blacks, Savia at 8, could be quite a busy day for the loose forwards, but if they can step up to the challenge, it will make it a lot easier for the likes of Garbisi and Beauden Barrett. With that ball's coming out quickly, could see some magic happening. And then the last head-to-head that I'm looking at is that number 15, Capuzio versus Jordan. Will Jordan, last game up against France, a little bit 50-50, having some strong moments, but also maybe not quite as free-flowing as we would normally see from Will Jordan. Capuzio, he is the type of player that when he goes well at 15, this whole Italian backline seem to do the same thing. And up against the All Blacks here, they will need to be on their A game, the Italians, because they've come a long way in just the last couple of years. But we thought that heading into the Rugby World Cup, that New Zealand versus Italy would be a lot closer, and we didn't actually get that. So hopefully this game in Italy, we do get to see it, and hopefully both of these sides really challenge each other, help take them up to the next level. But nonetheless, we are up to that stage of a prediction now for this game. Like I said, that game at the Rugby World Cup, I feel like it was an exception to what would normally happen between these two sides. Don't get me wrong, the All Blacks have had some great wins over Italy in the past, but it's not very often you see that type of scoreline. New Zealand getting as close as they did throughout their World Cup to getting to 100 points. Italy just never quite being able to defend it. So I think that this game still could have a little bit of one-sidedness about it, but I do think it will be a lot closer than that Rugby World Cup group stage match, and I'm going to say New Zealand to win it. Anything over 50 points sounds harsh against Italy, but anything under 50 points in a way could be considered harsh against the All Blacks. So I'm just going to go 50. 50 points to the All Blacks, 17 to the Italians, which I feel was relatively decent. You know, that's a try or two, maybe a penalty early on in the game. We've seen the All Blacks discipline still struggle throughout the November internationals, giving away repeat infringements, which in the end can cost them matches. But I just don't see this game being close enough for it to be a massive concern. So I am going with that score, 50 points to 17 between these two sides. But of course, do let me know who you think will be the standout players, and also your score prediction in the comments. This game has taken place at 9:10 a.m. New Zealand time on Sunday morning. We will be up doing the commentary. By that stage, we would have already done two other matches, Ireland versus Fiji, and also Wales versus South Africa. But thank you all very much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all for the next one.